Hi y'all. Kelly of Not Impossible Creations. I'm doing the Take It All Wristlet by Handcrafted by PJ Patterns. I'm gonna go over what you need and hopefully get this done in one sitting. I'm home with my son right now. You will need a zipper. I'm gonna be cutting this one down to size, so it doesn't have to be this long. You will need a snap of some sort. I will be using a pearl snap, like, oh, it's really hard to see, like this. But you can also use a magnetic snap. There are instructions in the pattern for how to put a magnetic snap in as well. You will also need a 1/2 inch swivel clasp, and then I'm using a 1/2 inch D-ring. The pattern calls for 3/8, but I only have 1/2 inch on hand, so that's what I'm using. And this needs to be made from either cork, vinyl, leather, anything that you can leave raw edge. So our first step is we are going to set aside, well, cut out your pieces, but I've already cut them. We're going to set aside this shorter piece and the strap piece. The strap piece we're not using to the end, and then we'll use this shorter piece later. We're going to be top stitching first. So take this long piece that you have your zipper box cut out of, and we are going to be top stitching on this edge, as well as the top edge here on your long pocket piece and on the top of your card slots. I'm top stitching in a 3.5 inch, not inch, goodness, 3.5 millimeter stitch length. You can do however you so desire. So yeah, let's get started. You need to either be back stitching at the beginning and end of everything, or you need to be pulling your threads through and knotting them in the back. However you prefer to finish your stitching. Top stitch is at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you are using a D-ring that is a different size than the 3/8 of an inch that's called for, like if you're using a 1/2 inch like me, you do need to adjust that D-ring tab piece to match the width of your D-ring. So instead of cutting mine at 3/8, I cut mine at a 1/2 inch. But it does depend on what size you use. I just don't have any 1/2 inch, or I don't have any 3/8 on hand, so. And the final one. I know it's kind of boring to watch me top stitch, but you know. After we top stitch, we're going to assemble the card slots. Make sure you trim your threads as you go, so you're not having to like reach your snips or scissors in weird places of the wallet. So what you need for the card slots are the the pocket piece and the card slot piece, which are these two square pieces. So what I like to do first is, because I'm working with a cork that kind of gets fuzzy on the end, this part is going to be stitched down on top of this, like so. So I'm not going to be able to hit these edges later, so I'm going to just heat seal the edges, just because that's what I like. So we are going to mark the middle of your long pocket piece going across, so fold it hamburger style, if you will. Make sure you are marking with either a chalk marker or a friction pen, something that you can get it off. You can't iron cork or vinyl, but you can put a lighter up to it, and it will get rid of the mark. And so for the card pocket, you are going to mark the middle as well. I mark a line. It's kind of hard to see. There we go. Mark a line all the way down the middle. And then what we do is we match the bottom of this line to the mark that we made over here. Make sure you're using clips. Please don't put pins through your nice cork or vinyl. You will leave holes and you will be oh so sad because they will not come out. Especially if you're using cork, because cork is quite expensive. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, now that I've clipped this in place right here, we're going to stitch up this line that we just drew. I like stitching up, keeps it nice and flush for me. I've switched my stitch length back to a 3 right now, but once again, you can use which stitch length you prefer. And then after that, we are going to stitch. So that divides our card slots for us. So you don't have just like a big hole, like a big pocket there. So now you can put your card slots in vertically. But these edges are still open on the side. So we're going to start on this end, stitch down 1/8 of an inch, all the way around and back up. Back stitch at the beginning and end. Or tie your threads or whatever you prefer to do. You get to the edge and it's not quite 1/8 when you turn it, just adjust your stitch length to get to that point. Snip your threads. If you did use a friction marker or a chalk, go on and get rid of this middle line that you just drew. So I'm just, that's gone. So we're done with this for now. So we are setting this to the side. We're going on to the zipper part. So you will need your large main body piece and your zipper. So your zipper, the way she has it done in the pattern, she tells you to have a longer zipper than 6 inches so you don't involve the metal stops, which I highly recommend. You don't want to have to sew through metal stops, break your needle, etc. So there's 2 ways to do this. You can do this the way she says in the pattern, which is to create a stop, like sew a stop across with your zipper with your machine, and then pull the zipper head in, measure 6 inches from that, and then sew the other stop. I'm a little lazy, so I'm not doing it that way today, but that is how it says to do it in the pattern. Very easy to do. Sorry, finishing the edges of that. So I'm being a little lazy on my part, but you understand. Just trying to get this threads, because I guess I just didn't snip these earlier. So on the wrong side, this is your zipper box. You can use double-sided tape here, or you can use glue to hold your zipper down. Do not use pens, or you will once again be a sad person because you left holes in your thing. So I'm using glue. I'm using Beacon Fabri-Tac. Well, I might be using Beacon Fabri-Tac. There we go. If you want your zipper pull to open from left to right when you're done, then you need to put it with your zipper head face down to the right now. If you want your zipper to open the other way, you will flip it. So if you did not do the stops as she suggested, you just put it in like this. Flip it over. You'd still do this even if you did do the stops, but just make sure if you didn't do the stops that you pinch this closed right here where normally they would be pulling to separate. Line up your zipper how you like it in the box and then push down on the glue or the tape, whichever you used, to kind of get that to set. Now we are going to stitch this zipper all the way around using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. When you get over to where the zipper head is, pull it out of the way. Lift your presser foot up, pull it out of the way, keep your needle down. Yeah, so let's do that. Make sure if you're using double-sided tape that you're using a tape like Wonder Tape or something that isn't going to gum up your needle. My stitch length is still a 3 right now. I probably won't change it off of a 3 until we do the final top stitching. In the pattern, she does suggest to leave the knot back stitch and pull the threads to the back, just so you don't have that top stitch look around the zipper. That is a personal preference on how you prefer to do that. If you are using a zipper with metal teeth, I'm using one with nylon teeth, so I can just sew over it. But if you are using a zipper with metal teeth, you need to either hand crank over your metal teeth, or you need to pull out the teeth where you'd be sewing over it. So I'm getting to my zipper head, so I'm going to raise my foot and just move that out of the way. Snip that. Oh, I am not having luck today with that. There we go. If you are particularly hard on your zippers when you pull them open, you can do like a back stitch over where your pull on the short ends where your pull would be against. Personal preference. I'm not really hard on mine, but all right. If you have not already trimmed your zipper because you were doing it the lazy way like I am instead of the proper way like she does in the pattern, go on and trim your zipper now. You can either use regular scissors or pinking shears. Don't get too close to the edge. You don't want it to be right up against the threads, but you do want to get it out of your seam allowance. And she recommends a little bit of glue here to keep the edges from fraying. You could also use fray check, whichever you have on hand or prefer. It's not necessarily a required step. It is just a nice way to make sure your zipper doesn't fray. You could also take a lighter to it and melt the edges. It is just a preference as to how you want to finish your zipper. I do recommend finishing it though. So that's it. Now, the next step. If you are putting in a magnetic snap, this is the spot where stop what you're doing. Leave this part alone. Your magnetic snap is going to go on the smaller piece, because this is how it's going to look. Please, please, please do not put your magnetic snap on the outside of the main body. You will be so sad. Ask me how I know I did that in the original when I tested. That's why she has warnings all in her pattern. That you will, if you are putting in a magnetic snap, this is where you stop. Take your small inner flap piece, use the measurements that she has or the pattern piece, mark it, and install your magnetic snap. I am using a pearl snap today, so I'm not doing that. If you're using a pearl snap or a snap that just punches through, then we are going on to the next step. So on the wrong side of your inside flap, which is this guy, the short guy, you will be measuring down 4 inches from the top, approximately. The reason is when you put this down, it kind of keeps it from bubbling if you put some glue in here. But you don't want the glue to be coming down on your zipper because then you'll be gluing your zipper pocket closed, which would be really sad. So I'm actually going to glue on this zipper, the exterior piece, because then I can visualize exactly where my zipper is. And that way I don't make any measurement mistakes. Doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to hold your thing down. So now you are going to put these right sides together. Try to match up your top edges as nice as you can get it. I use a couple clips just so they don't shift while the glue is drying. And if it's not perfect, you hand cut it. It's okay. It really is. You can trim it down when everything is done so all the edges are nice and flush, because no one is perfect. Not even cutting machines are perfect as much as we would like them to be. So, if you want to zip your zipper up on the back, you can. It doesn't matter at this point because we are not turning anything. All right, so I've clipped all the way around just to kind of hold it in place, and I've kind of pressed so the glue will start adhering. We are now going to stitch across the bottom here. 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm using 3mm stitch length. This is where you definitely want to make sure that your bobbin thread is matching whatever the outside of your cork is, because it is going to show on the back. And it would be very sad if you were using like a white or a black bobbin thread and then it didn't match your stuff later. Try to make sure when you do stitch it, if you didn't clip everything, that it was nice and flush so you don't get bubbling up in there because you didn't keep it all straight. Trim your threads. So that's what it looks like so far. It would help if I actually showed you. This is what it looks like so far. Whoop, drop my glue. That's okay. There's the back with the zipper. So the next step is... I go out of order a lot, so I'm trying to make sure that I do this right, is installing the female half of the snap. So you're going to want to it's going to go right here, and you're either going to use the measurements given in the patterns for your snap placement, or you can use the pattern piece itself to mark, which is my preference because it just feels a little more precise to me. If you mark it with a friction pen or chalk so you can erase it later. The reason that I am doing these long marks on mine instead of just a dot is because of how I have to install my pearl snap is unfortunately a little imprecise if I don't have those lines. So we're going to, whatever method you choose on this for installing the snap, make sure you just follow the directions of your snap. If you are putting a magnetic snap here and you have prongs on the back, you would cut out an additional piece of cork and use it to cover the prongs either with glue or with or stitching it down. Excuse me. Wait a moment. Oh, and then of course I did this on the wrong side because I always do that. If I flip it upside down, if I do it from the other direction, then I will have no way of doing it without my snaps falling off of the tool that I use. So Yeah, no, those are little, I'm not really sure if you can see them. So, no, I'm not on camera very well for this part, but it is just really however you choose to install your snap. All right, so that is the snap installed on mine. You can, I typically do, you know, female snaps on the base and then male snaps on the flap, but of course it is your choice and preference. So that was that step. The next step, so you can see the little back right here. If you would have prongs, if it was magnetic, you would just use a piece to cover it. You can also use a piece to cover up this, but it doesn't bother me on this part. So we're basically at final assembly, honestly. So what we are going to do next is we are going to take our card slots that we made earlier, and there are some measurements in the patterns that we need to mark on these edges here. We're going to mark down from the edges according to the pattern piece. This is where when we fold up our flap, our bottom flap, where these edges are supposed to meet, really make sure you mark these because it will help keep your the final product finished. Now we're going to mark 1 inch down on the left, or if you prefer your wrist strap on the right, then you would mark down from the right, but this is on the left for me because that's where I prefer mine. 1 inch down and 3/8 of an inch in. All right, and that's where our D-ring is going to go. I already did this step, so dab a little bit of, wrap your D-ring strap, D-ring tab around your D-ring and glue it right here. I did that already, but it says do it now, so just reminding you. Attach your D-ring just at this mark. So see, our mark is right here. Put it down, I think you can actually see better. Our mark is here. It's where our 1 inch is. We're going to put it just under that line. And as she instructs on the pattern. Either use glue or a piece of double-sided tape. I'm actually using double-sided tape here in this instance solely because it is skinny and I don't want glue seeping out everywhere around it because I am really bad at putting the right amount of glue on something. So, and apparently I'm really bad at measuring the amount of tape I need to. So, a little piece of tape. And then place it right on top. Just like that. So now it's held in place when we do our final stitch, and you won't have to worry about it shifting. So next is really the final steps here. Take your card slots with the D-ring attached, or not if you're not doing the D-ring, and place it so the bottom edge lines up with this bottom edge. And at this point, this is where I like to kind of move my clips some to kind of hold this in place, because it can get wiggly, and that's just the nature of working with something, with anything really. It gets wiggly if you don't hold it down right. So this is what it looks like so far. We have the pockets and this. So next is, you're like, well, what the heck is this doing? You just fold this up, and it should line up with your 1/4 inch marks that you made on the card slots earlier. Please just make sure that these line up as best you can. It really does help give it a final, keep it straight on the bottom. Otherwise you can get real wiggly up in there. All right, so this is it's not stitched together, but this is what it's going to look like. We are going to stitch, the first step is stitching a 1/4 inch on just up to where the card slots end on both sides. This gives your slots a little extra bit of protection. So that's what we're going to do first. I am increasing my stitch length to 3.5 for the rest of the sewing here. So 1/4 inch. This also gives your D-ring a little bit extra protection and stability by putting an extra bit of stitching on that. Back stitch at the beginning in, or pull your threads through, whatever your preference may be. And then do the same on the other side. I flipped mine over because that's just how I like stitching, but you certainly don't have to. Sorry, I'm leaning over to the edge to see where the card slots end so I don't go too far. Snip your threads, and then we are on the final top stitch, which is not nearly as exciting as the final countdown song. Band nerd, can't help the references, sorry. So next we are just top stitching 1/8 inch all the way around. You don't top stitch this bottom, just around these 3 edges. You can choose to either top stitch with the pockets up or the pockets down. I personally like doing the pockets down when I do the final top stitch. That's just my preference. In the pattern, she says that she does them up because it's easier on the feed dogs. It's totally your personal preference as to how you like to top stitch. I like top stitching from the edge that is going to be most seen, in my opinion. And then just go all the way around. Go nice and slow on the edges. And by edges, I mean curves, but all edges really. If you have a really wide foot and you already installed a magnetic snap, you might consider using a zipper foot if you're worried about it not going over this smoothly. That is personal preference, and that is just on you knowing the inner workings of your machine. My machine has no issues going over the bump that is a magnetic snap when I use them, however yours might. I am doing a little extra back stitch here on the D-ring just to give it that extra little bit of stability. You do not have to do that, not a requirement. It is just my preference. Alright, she also recommends doing that in her instructions as well. You never know how much pressure someone might be putting on it. So basically we are almost done. I am running out of time on my phone because I don't have that much time left on my battery. So if you have not installed this final snap, you need to go on and do that. Mark it here, install your snap, and then it's done. You can have the option of bending this and flattening it where it flattens, and then stitching a line across it where the fold is to help give it memory. Not a requirement, just a suggestion. She does it on hers. She does have an exact measurement on where it is, I believe, in her pattern. It can vary though depending on how your pattern went together. So install your snap if you haven't. If you already did your magnetic snap, you're done. If you're doing another snap, go on and put it in. And then when you fold it, if you want to do that memory stitch line, just fold this down mark where the fold was, and then stitch across it. And then the final step is the wrist strap, and the wrist strap is truly not difficult. I'm going to try and get it done in the minute that I have left. Your wrist strap, mark the center with a pen. This strap is an inch wide, so your center is going to be 1/2 inch. And you are going to fold these edges in. You can add tape to this line to make it easy, or if you feel confident, you can just fold it in and clip. I'm going to add tape to it. That's my preference. Just the tape down. And then pull the tape off, and then just fold it up. After you fold this up, you are going to just top stitch down it 1/8 of an inch from the edges. But my video time is about to end, so I'm gonna have to let y'all go. I will do a separate video if I need to. Bye-bye.